Think about your everyday life. If you're in school or college or maybe even working, your day probably looks the same. You wake up early in the morning, go about your routine on autopilot, and then head out. By the time you get back home, the one thing that you really want is time for yourself. Maybe to do a hobby or passion project or just spending time with family and friends. So you sit down, maybe scroll for a little bit, start something, and it's midnight. Gotta go to sleep now. Tomorrow's work. Gotta do the same thing over and over again. And the cycle just gets worse. If this feels even slightly familiar to you, you're not the only one. Studies show that time seems to pass faster the more we age. So, yes, not only are you already losing time as you get older, but the remaining time that you have will also seem shorter because it will pass much faster. What a great way to start a video by Existential Dread. Only on thoughts, probably, guys. A research from LSA University of Michigan says that the older we get, the more likely it is that we're clocking up fewer and fewer new experiences with each year that passes. It's probably why you can remember some random embarrassing moment from high school, but last week already feels blurry in your memory. It's because when we were kids, almost everything was new. New places, new routines, new people, and overall new experiences. And so our brain had more to process, and hence time felt to pass slightly slower. But now most of the days feel the same, and nothing new really happens. So your brain doesn't really hold well onto those memories, it just sort of passes. Or, in scientific terms, the rate at which we process visual information slows down as we age. As the size and complexities of the networks of neurons in our brains increase, the electrical signals must travel larger distances, leading to slower signaling processing. But okay, a lot of people know this phenomena exists that time seems to slow down as we get older. But what isn't discussed as much is the effect of anxiety. So I was reading an article about the relation of anxiety and fear with the passage of time, as anyone does on a fine Sunday evening. And despite it being very different from the situation that we're discussing, I couldn't help but wonder that maybe one reason is we don't live in the present anymore. We're either thinking ahead to an assignment or a project or a deadline, or we're stuck replaying something from the past, maybe an embarrassing memory or a bad day we had, or just something that we wish went differently. And both of those things end up creating this low, constant pressure that keeps nagging our brain. You're either worried about what might happen or you're still stuck on what already did, which isn't in your control anymore. And when your mind is always somewhere else, the free time that you have doesn't really feel yours. It doesn't really, you know, feel free. And speaking of anxiety, did you know that all the scrolling we do on TikTok or Instagram, it's a major contributor to anxiety? A study involving Norwegian individuals ranging from 16 to 88 years of age reported a more frequent association of anxiety with addiction to social media use. Similarly, another US based study involving 563 adults aged 18 to 22 showed that the amount of time spent using social media was directly related to the incidence of dispositional anxiety. Not only that, but now there's a new phenomena called social media fatigue, which is the burnout or fatigue which comes from excessive use of social media. This means that when you come home after a long day of work and you're tired, the use of social media only makes it worse, leaving little energy or time for anything that you might actually enjoy doing. So maybe it's not that we don't have free time anymore, it's just that the time that we do get, our mind is always somewhere else, either thinking about what's next to come or what has already happened. And when we try to relax, it doesn't really work. We only end up draining ourselves even more. And hey, maybe it's not something that can be fixed overnight. Maybe it's just about noticing it when it does happen. Catching those moments when you finally have the time and you're actually there for it. Because otherwise, it just pass.